I find myself stepping in and helping. I don't even feel like it's a choice, right? It's like compulsion. And so then I noticed, like this week, between my usual things I have to take care of at work and my family and my dog, and then that on top of it, I was starting to have some resentment about the caretaking I'm doing.
Welcome to Partners in Sublime, where we explore the teachings of depth psychology and Vedic philosophy to achieve the highest levels of personal growth and self-actualization. Join me as we tap into the unconscious for intuitive guidance and creative direction. I'm your host, Shagun Chopra. Let's begin. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Partners in Sublime. Today we're going to talk about savior complex, and to discuss this complex topic with me, I have Amy. She is one of my friends and fellow coaches, and we did Jungian coach training together. And I'll let Amy share in her own words what her journey for personal development and inner work has been like, so you get to know who you're hearing from. Okay, Amy, I turn it over to you.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited to be here. And I'll share a little bit about my journey first, so just people can understand who's having this conversation with you. So I spent most of my career building a creative agency. And I actually had moved, I'm calling in from Salt Lake City, Utah. I had moved here to work for the 2002 Olympic Winter Games. And following the games, I co-founded a creative design firm with two business partners, and we ran it for 20 years, and it was absolutely incredible. In 2021, we actually got acquired. So we got acquired, and I found myself working for the company that acquired our company and kind of stepping into a new chapter in life, a new phase in life. And from the outside, everything looked successful, yet I could feel there was this growing sense inside of me that what I had achieved and done and accomplished, it just wasn't as fulfilling for me anymore. And even though I was working on what many thought were great projects, working in the sport world, I found myself just really wanting something deeper, something different in life. Mm-hmm. And my inner journey really, to be honest, started long time ago, but I didn't really know I was doing it. I was always like drawn to those self-help books, and I'm an avid book reader. People know, like, I can constantly refer books to people. I'm like, oh, this is a good book. Just I feel like I've read them all, but I found myself at this point in life, and of course it's for me, it's midlife, that midlife range where you start asking different questions, like, who am I beyond what I do? Like, I found, like, if I'm not the partner of this creative firm, then who am I? I just was so attached to that identity and proud of that identity. But I also knew it wasn't serving me anymore. And I needed to step into something new. And so in 2023 is actually when I found Jungian psychology, Eastern spirituality. It answered a call that I was searching for, but I didn't really know what it was. And within 2 weeks, I had enrolled in the training to become a coach, although at that time I was still working full time. And I just felt a need to create options for myself. And I knew I could do this for my own inner work. I could use it in my current role, which at that time I had stepped into people and culture, or I could do something else with it and launch my coaching business, which is what I did. Mm-hmm. So it's a long journey, and I'll kind of leave it there. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit about my background and where I am now.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up the creative agency part, because every time we've interacted, I think I've said things to you like, it feels like the stuff that happens in your life is like meant to be this artistic representation of our personal growth journey. And, you know, you always use them so well to,
thank you.
Teach different concepts. So I've loved seeing that. So maybe we can talk about a specific area of your life where this type of depth work has helped you the most, because I think it's important for people to understand that this is a journey everybody does. No coach is on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And this is also a journey that ebbs and flows, and you sometimes you're on it without even knowing it. And you can't really lead someone through it unless you've been in the muck yourself. So what is something that you've really either struggled with or applied this work to that you think our audience would want to hear?
Yeah, I would say it was about a 5-year period of what I'll call some deep struggles. And it was during the pandemic. Actually kind of started probably from 2019 to 2024. So that's that 5-year fringe where we were selling our business. The pandemic hit. I felt like I was selling the business and saving it at the same time. It was the last year. Whew, getting emotional.
Oh, yeah.
The last year of my mother's life. Obviously, still processing, because that was that on top of it. She lived with MS most of her life, most of her adult life. So she was 78 when she passed in 2021, and then also a couple months after she passed, I was diagnosed with MS, and it was just so much of life. Oh, let's add perimenopause on top of that because that's a real thing. Like just so much of life, like the weight was so heavy, and I was so used to being able to do everything and accomplish everything and do so much in a day, where I found myself just exhausted, burned out, fatigued. I'd had headaches. Like I would have to lay down for a good hour or two every day. Like I couldn't function. And so in 2024, I transitioned out of my corporate role and really took what I call a fallow period. That's the rest, the intentional rest, to kind of take that time for myself and take kind of what I call like take the reins of my life back. And instantly my health started becoming just having more energy. And that's taken some time, but I do feel like it's because of a lot of this depth work that I've done for myself, because as you know, as you go through the coaching program, you also work with a coach. And so taking me through my journey, and now that I feel like it's a lifelong journey, of course, but because of what I've been through, I feel like I can understand a lot of what my clients have been through. And so what many people call midlife crisis, I call a midlife awakening. It's the opportunity to kind of reclaim yourself and step into who you truly are. And I feel like the steps that I've made in my life have allowed me to do that, where I'm less driven by external validation, where I'm more willing to trust my own inner knowing, right? I'm more comfortable disappointing others when necessary. Right, which was always very difficult for me, and just more interested in alignment over achievement. And it doesn't mean I don't want to achieve anything. It's coming from a different place, and it has a different energy. And I found myself so out of alignment, I had to realign myself. And when you're in alignment, that's when the creative vitality comes back, and I'm feeling it. And that's what I do. I help my clients that are feeling that maybe they've been successful in the external world, but they're not fulfilled right now, or there's some restlessness or unhappiness and they're not quite sure what it is. So we kind of help them get realigned and kind of rediscover themselves.
Yeah, I love everything you said, and it gave such a beautiful description of how the midlife totally feels like a crisis. You feel like life is falling apart. It's still in some ways raw for you, and it's such an opportunity to be totally different and be driven by something that's core and internal to you, versus all these messages coming from the world saying what you should and shouldn't do. And me growing up in India, we get we're like known for everybody telling you what you should study, what career you should choose, and when you should get married and when you should have a kid, and like the whole way through. So it is so liberating to do that, even if life doesn't look very different on the outside. The quality of it changes on the inside. Love that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so exciting. I feel like, every day I'm like, I get to really be honest with myself, and that's where that kind of what I call the hidden power of pause, just to check in. And sometimes it's just a simple question like, is this truly what I want right now? Or just kind of being more honest with myself, and then taking steps from deeper authenticity has also then created more vitality for me.
Truly, truly.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I'm glad I got to meet the vital version of you, though I'm sure previous version of you would have been just as great on the outside. So you said that this work has been like a 5-year journey. And given that the pandemic was 5-ish years ago, I'm assuming the journey is continuing. What would you say is your current area of focus specifically within your inner work?
Well, certainly perfectionism is something I'm still wrestling with, but I think it's about integrating different parts of myself, the achiever, the creator, the nurturer, the mystic, like really allowing all of those identities to work together and support each other versus having more dominant and being, that's where the imbalance comes from, right? When it's a little more, or it's more conditioned way of being, where I'm able to step into each and every day with more intention and realizing, just kind of being more aware and mindful of my choices, of my words, even, the words I say, the words even that I just say to myself, and knowing how powerful those words are, right? And kind of reframing if I need to, or catching myself, but just really knowing all the different identities in me, they're all valid and real, and I get to honor each and every one of them.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, it's not about picking one and running with it like that's your horse you want to take to the finish line, which is what so much first half of life is about. Now it's like all these wild beasts are within me.
Oh, I like the way you described them, all these wild beasts. It's kind of playful and fun. I remember the childhood book Where the Wild Things Are, which got banned for a while. Or maybe it still is, I don't know. But I loved that book as a child. It was just so, it's just it is this wild energy within us, right? And when you know how to tap into it, there is it's an expansive feeling where I realized, even though I was accomplishing a lot and doing a lot, there were some aspects of my life where it's very limited. And now that I've stepped into this different phase of life, I am able to live more in true alignment with where I am now. And not to say I was completely out of alignment before. I feel like I was in alignment, but then I didn't adjust as I adjusted. I didn't adjust my life as I grew. And my life stayed the same, but I was growing. And then I really found myself out of alignment. So I had to readjust again. Yeah. But I had to catch myself because and my body was giving me those messages before I would admit it to myself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
This is reminding me of, Martha Beck and her, she has this book that she wrote after living a year in integrity, where she also had so many autoimmune and other disorders. And it all came from not living an aligned life. So she lived lived honestly, stopped lying, actually physically stopped lying. And the body started to heal, which is so amazing because our body is always giving us the somatic signal like, hey, something's not okay. Something's not okay.
Yes. And so many times we ignore it, right? I ignored it and I kept pushing and I kept, pushing harder. And my body was pushing back more to a point where I had no choice but to make a change. And I'm grateful that I made a change, but Of course, I'm like, oh, okay, I wish I would have listened to myself sooner. But, as always, everything happens in the time that it's meant to happen with that. And I'm very grateful. I always like to say it was so bad, it's good. Meaning if it didn't get as bad as it got, I would have endured longer because I've always been able to endure a lot of pain. I could just endure. I used to run marathons, and you would just kind of push through the pain to get to the finish line. Although with life, I guess the finish line is the end, the end, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, how do we pace ourselves so we can enjoy the journey instead of just keep pushing ourselves through the pain?
Beautifully said. Yes. The pain is a signal, like so many emotional signals that the body gives us, and we have to pay attention to it, learn from it. And I always say that, you're doing yourself a big disservice if you start ignoring these signs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, for everyone watching, I hope you got to know a bit more of Amy, and we can now transition to today's topic, which is savior complex. Before we listen to this session, I just want to give a little bit of my, Jungian vocabulary overview. We have our conscious and we have our unconscious, and the unconscious, by definition, is something that's not known to us. But our unconscious is not this disorganized heap of material. Everything that goes in the unconscious gets structured as complexes. It gravitates to archetypal cores and it becomes its own thing. So whenever we say somebody has some kind of complex, we are referring to taking some archetypal, age-old, ancestral idea and layering our own material on top of it, and creating this autonomous wild being, let's go with that analogy, within us that just keeps surfacing in the unconscious and then comes down, and keeps surfacing and then comes down. And when you get sick and tired of it, you're like, oh, what is this? Like, what is this thing? And then hopefully you do some inner work and uncover it. So there can be many complexes. Savior complex is one of these complexes. As the word indicates, it is about this compulsion, this autonomous drive to save someone or something. And the reason it's a complex is because it does not negotiate with you. It just shows up in your life and takes over. In past episodes, I've used the analogy of, you, the ego conscious mind, is driving the car and there's all these creatures at the back. But if one of them were to just jump and take the steering wheel, that's when you know you're in the grip of the complex. So today's session that we're going to listen to is going to be with someone I'll call Jan. Jan is talking about being in the middle of savior complex right now. We will listen to the session, and then I will see you on the other side when Amy and I debrief what happened in the session and maybe bring in our own experiences of savior complex as well. So stay tuned, and I will see you in just a bit. Conversations on Partners in Sublime are for educational purposes only and do not constitute medical or psychological advice or treatment. Please consult a licensed professional for any mental health concerns. Hi Jan, welcome. Tell me what is on your mind.
Well, my sister is moving from Alabama to Florida, so last week I went up there to help her get her cat, get out of the apartment, drive the cat, medicate the cat, all those things. And she's just not as adept at the computer and doing things for herself because she was married 45 years, almost 50. And so she's trying and she's learning, but I find myself stepping in and helping. I don't even feel like it's a choice, right? It's like compulsion. And so then I noticed, like this week, between my usual things I have to take care of at work and my family and my dog, and then that on top of it, I was starting to have some resentment about the caretaking I'm doing.
Yeah. I think one of the words that stands out to me from your description was compulsion, like you almost can't help yourself. So how far back does it go? Have you always been this way?
Well, That's an interesting question because I have very few memories of childhood at all. So I'm not exactly sure. I feel like it came about just from kind of managing the room at home and trying to see who was in what kind of mood and what I could do to fix it. So, if what's the matter? Did I do something? Did I say, always looking for what was wrong. And I think now I've gotten so good at fixing that I'm like a human chat GPT or something.
Yeah, yeah. I bet it's very exhausting.
Yes, it's very exhausting. And then I'm irritated because I'm tired. And I know logically, I just don't know specifically. So I know at a high level. But when it comes to implementation, I just say, well, sorry, I don't have any more energy today. I can't help you get your mortgage. I don't know. It's not that I don't know how to say no, because I do know how. Like she said, well, I think instead of following you back, I may stay an extra night in a hotel. I think I'll be too tired to drive. And I said, well, I'm not. I'm going to drive on because I want to go home, when we're done. So I can set boundaries, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. It comes from this deep place of always having to, like you said, read the room, see what people need, and jumping right in to meet that need. Does the word savior resonate with you in terms of describing this?
If you want to say that,
Yeah, yeah. It sounds a bit like that, right? And ultimately, you're trying to save yourself by adopting the savior strategy. So I don't want to say that it it definitely helped you, which is why it lasted this long and it's
yeah.
become so cemented and just has taken a life of its own. And you said, that you know it, but when the time comes, it still kind of takes over. And I think that's the thing with these automatic parts of ourselves that just like come in the picture. And what I wouldn't want to do is to think more about it because it sounds like you have the awareness of how it came to be, what you do, what your pattern is. But I think what we could do is try to meet your savior in an imagination and just see what that looks like because it's having to rise to the surface in this time of your life when you're supporting your sister with this big transition.
Hmm.
Instead of it just having to come about, our hope is that we just let it come about and see if that helps lessen the intrusiveness of savior takeover.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so if you don't mind, if you can just sit back and if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and do this little visualization with me.
All right.
So, first thing you'd want to do is just relax your body. I'm sure, as with all of us, our minds are always going a million miles an hour. All that can be there, but you don't have to pay attention to it. Allow your breath to deepen. Allow your body to be taken over by this warm golden light going all the way from the top of your head down to the tips of your toes. And as you witness your body get more and more relaxed, there is room now for parts of you that don't get to come to the surface to emerge. I would like you to visualize your Savior in your body as a figure or a symbol. Allow it to take any shape or form it likes. Now you can keep your eyes closed and answer a few questions as we go along. What part of your body do you feel the Savior in?
Probably in my chest, a little bit in my stomach. It's kind of a mix of pride and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good description because that really is what the Savior can be. You feel good about helping, but it comes at a cost.
Hmm.
What does the Savior look like in your mind, symbolically?
Well, immediately I pictured, I guess, me, maybe with shorter hair and a cape, of course. Superhero. Look at me.
Hmm. What else do you notice about the Savior?
Mm, chest is up and out, like, proud. Appears dominant. I don't know exactly why. Maybe hands on hips, sort of.
You're witnessing this savior through the lens of your higher self. You are there, your body is there, the savior is there within your body. I would like you to ask your witnessing self, your higher self, to give you a symbol to help you deal with the situation at hand. Something to soothe your savior.
Blinders.
Blinders.
Like you put on a horse where they like don't see what needs to be done here.
You can thank your higher self for giving you that symbol. And now I want you to sit back as if you're watching a little movie in your mind and picture this savior version of you and this symbol in the same frame. Let them do whatever they want to do. If they want to interact with each other, they can come close, go apart. You're just watching.
Doesn't like the blinders. How am I going to do my job with those on?
What are the symbols doing actually? Is one pushing the other away or just turning away from it?
Savior's looking away, and the blinders are on the floor on the left.
Just hold that image in your mind. Let it work on you.
Okay, well, now the Savior's like, for God's sake, let me try them on. Irritated.
Yeah. You can continue to observe the Savior's irritation and anything the Savior is doing with the blinders.
They're on. But the Savior's just like more looking down, like what's the point in looking up because I can't see out, so I'll just look down.
Savior looks kind of dejected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad.
Do you want to ask the Savior why it's feeling sad?
How am I supposed to know how to help people if I can't see what they need?
Yeah. Sounds like your Savior really likes to help and is feeling so sad that it just won't be able to do that.
Not unless the person asks for help.
Let's continue watching this image, this movie of your mind.
The Savior can't even seem to think right now. The blinders are on visually, but circuits aren't working right. Because you took away a sense from it. It feels dangerous.
What might you say to the Savior to offer it some relief in this situation? Almost feels like the Savior is like a fish out of water, doesn't quite know what to do, how to be with these blinders on.
Maybe you don't have anything to prove. I understand where you came from and why you do these things. I don't know. What would make it feel better? That's how it feels.
Let's ask the Savior itself what would help.
What do you need from me? Keep me safe. Help me balance my energy that I give away with the energy I want to keep.
Is that a promise you think you can make?
I'll have to learn how to do that, and I will do that for you. I don't know how, or we wouldn't be here.
Maybe you can be honest and just say that you will try.
I will try my best, I promise.
Notice how the Savior looks and feels now. There was a description of it that you started with at the beginning of the visualization, and maybe it looks different from that now.
A little deflated, but not necessarily sad. Limp, more limp. Like, are you sure this is a good thing for me? What am I going to be proud of?
Yeah, feels like it's like a little child who just got, defeated at a soccer game or something.
Mm-hmm.
started all puffed up and now is like, oh, am I ever going to be able to play again? Am I ever going to be able to do the only thing I know how to do?
Yes.
And you're saying to this child that I'll try to help you play again, but maybe we limit that play to just us and not the whole world.
And that's going to be hard.
Now I want you to take your attention away from this movie you've been watching to your body. What emotion do you feel in your body?
Well, emotion, I guess, sad. Not sure where to go with it.
Maybe there's nowhere to go and you just allow this emotion to be there. What would open up for you if you didn't fight this feeling of sadness so hard?
What would open up for me if I allowed myself to feel sad?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel that your savior comes out because you don't want to feel this way. But if you play the whole thing out in your mind, like you just did, if you just allow yourself to feel sad when you see the savior standing there looking dejected, not knowing what to do, then you might not be as tempted to go like, okay, never mind, savior, just do what you were always doing, and because I don't want to feel this way.
It makes sense logically. I just don't know how to let it not have to do all that when it's the real world.
Yeah. What is the teeniest promise you can make to your savior about when it's all ready to help and jump in?
That I'll help you, I promise I'll help you and us think through if this approach is best for us and how it feels, and I will do my best to. I can't say I won't help my sister. That wouldn't be true. I will do my best to set limits around what you do versus what others do for themselves.
I think you're saying to your savior that I will make sure you get to help. That you don't have to stand in the corner and be all deflated. I promise you, I will give you opportunity to help.
It'll just be more balanced. So it's going to feel different, but I will help you.
And just notice in your body how it feels when you imagine yourself saying that to your savior.
A little bit of relief, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of queasy.
Instead of judging your savior and being like, here it is again, I'm doing what I've always done, why can't it stop, why can't I make it stop? You take a different attitude toward your savior. Savior is a part of me. Look how sad it gets when it doesn't get to do what it has trained its whole life to do. I'll make sure to give this savior an opportunity to help. I'll just decide when and how and in what measure.
I can do that.
Maybe we can start making our way back from this visualization. You can thank all these parts that live in your mind, live in your psyche, for showing you what's going on, for guiding you, for dialoguing with you. And you can take a deep breath and open your eyes.
I don't like doing that. Well, it's hard work.
It is very hard work.
To break automatic patterns or to look at them and sit with it. I had gotten pretty good about keeping that in balance and don't do things generally that I don't want to do. But I guess my heartstrings got pulled a bit with her and I wanted to help her.
And isn't it nice that you have that capacity in your heart to want to do
Yeah.
that for someone?
Yeah. It just crossed over in the last few days and started feeling resentment or irritability more than specific resentment at her, but it comes out that way, I'm sure, if I'm irritable.
Yeah, in the visualization, the savior was irritated when it was asked to put the blinders on. It was like, I don't even want to try doing that.
Yeah, I got some spunky parts.
If you think of the visualization as a representation of what's going on in your life, because you go through different phases, right? you're like, it's my sister, of course I'm gonna help. And then you go to, "Oh, I'm so irritated that I'm helping, dejected that why can't I stop helping." So all these emotions were also playing out in the visualization. You don't have to let them play out in real life, but when you do let them play out in the visualization, you can see that ultimately you had to get to the point where you could comfort the Savior.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep working on it. I want to say that was just yesterday. My therapist and I were working on some untangling. It's abstract at time when you do this kind of work, and it's not literal, and you don't try to solve it in those kinds of sessions. You wait, like you said, to let it untangle itself, self-liberation, without me trying to direct.
Yeah. I think that's so profound because that's what we do in the visualization. We let the image be. And it did do things on its own without your intervention. You know, the Savior went from being all puffed up to, okay, you should put blinders. Oh, I don't want to put blinders. I'm irritated. But okay, fine, I'll reluctantly do it. But now I'm a little bit sad, to you comforting the Savior and going like, well, maybe you'll get to help in, some other way, or at least I'll try to, make sure that you get to. And all that played out without you needing to do anything. It's just your own psyche doing stuff. And
Yeah.
it's such a good reminder that that's what would happen in the physical world too, if you just waited and tolerated all the discomfort that comes from seeing these different stages.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something tied to that I'm working on around distress tolerance. And I've done some specific work with my therapist. And those sessions have helped me be able to sit with what can feel like agony at times more without losing myself, because I've been there with someone therapeutically. Then I can say, it's okay. It's okay to be cold. It's okay to feel nauseous. It's okay to whatever. So I can say that to that Savior too. It's okay to want to help. It's okay to be afraid if you're not helping, So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm really glad you're doing that work in therapy. So, based on everything we did just now, what is something you're getting out of this session that you would take with you and take it to your real life?
For me, I think it's pausing before I jump in, and at least checking in with myself to see what bandwidth I have to help physically and emotionally in that moment. And if I could say, I can help you with that, but not today, or pausing and trying to determine what in there maybe they can do with guidance versus me do it. So really, I guess just more reflect on what it is I'm getting ready to do rather than just jump right in to react.
Welcome back, everyone. That was our session with Jan. I'm always so grateful when people are willing to share their inner work, their process, so the rest of us can watch it, learn from it. And today you have the benefit of not just me, but Amy as well, as we look at this session together. So, Amy, let me start with you. What stood out to you the most about this session?
Well, what really struck me the most was how quickly the psyche personified itself. And this was a really interesting episode to listen to and observe. And I definitely found myself connecting with it, where here the Savior is not just an idea, right? But it appeared as a living figure with its own emotions, its own motivations, and its own fears.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what stood out to me most.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole, cape and stance and like, I'm so
Yeah,
proud.
yeah,
But then I'm so sad when I don't get to help. Like it really felt like another real person living in your unconscious.
Yeah, and the Savior, what came through was the Savior wasn't trying to hurt her.
Mm-hmm.
It was really just trying to protect her in the only way it knew how.
Mm. Yes. I sense a personal story there, Amy.
Well, I definitely can relate to the Savior complex and what I'll call the rescuer, in the drama triangle, like always wanting to rescue someone that's in pain. And rescue, I'm 8 of 9 children in my family. So like Jen,
Wow,
as
I
she
didn't know
was,
that.
oh, you didn't? Yes, 8 of 9. So I also, like Jen, was observing the room and figuring out, like, being in tune with others and what did I need to do if someone was in pain or suffering in some way, and how could I make it better for them, which ultimately also makes it better for me,
Mm-hmm.
which I wasn't even thinking about that before, but I mean, that's where it comes from. It's like, yes, supporting them, but also knowing that if they're better, then I'm better, right? Because I would
Yeah.
take on their energy. And as I stepped into coaching, kind of learning how to shift from being the rescuer to being the coach, right? Because there was that natural savior complex in me, based on my childhood and the environment that I grew up in, and it protected me, right?
Mm-hmm.
As Jen was telling her stories where she wants to support and help her sister, but then, when doing it from a place that is from this maybe conditioned way of being, that's where the resentment and frustration and irritation would show up, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's been something that up until this point in life, I would say up until these last few years, something that was a natural way of being for me that was part of depleting my energy too, along with many other things. But it was something that I didn't realize how
Mm-hmm.
exhausted I felt from it, taking on other people's challenges or other people's problems when really, ideally, I'm here to support them, not take them on, right? And
Yes,
I
and it's
and
especially hard when you choose coaching or any kind of, personal work as your profession, because you take the tendency of not just wanting to save your family and your friends, and you start applying it to your clients, and suddenly you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulder.
yeah,
Like, I too have identified with being the savior. I was the older child in the family where my grandparents were refugees. A lot of stuff was going on. I never quite felt that the adults in my house just had it together and could handle things. So I would always try to step in. Like, one of my earliest things that I remember of trying to be a savior is trying to facilitate a discussion about where we should move to when I was in 4th grade, between people who, like, my parents and my grandparents, who are way older than me, who know a lot of, but I thought that unless I did that, we're not going to be able to move out of this neighborhood. A lot of stuff was going on in our lives, and that was predicated on us being able to do that. And to just start to, like, really internalize that and think that, oh, now, no, we did move. So, what I did, it helped. And that's how the pattern gets reinforced and the complex continues to get developed. And it's so strong and it still shows up. I found
yeah,
myself that day. Um, this is, you just see the line of influence. It can keep getting further and further away as you get more masterful at being the rescuer or the savior.
yes,
It's like, my nanny's sister is pregnant and does not have a very good birth plan, because there is some, like, mess up with her insurance. And so she is, like, trying to decide if she'd be able to go to the hospital and pay the full price or have a home birth. And I found myself really just sending her a lot of educational videos, sharing my own experience. She doesn't really speak English, so I'm using Google Translate a lot to, like, tell her what's going on. And then I start telling this story to a friend of mine that I met at the park. And then she's like, hold on, like, this is not your child. Like, this is somebody else's child. And I think you've done what you can. You've told her what it would be like, how insurance can really come, like lack of insurance can really come and bite you. You've told her, here's the home birth, stuff that I use. Like, you've pretty much given her all you can. And then you have to leave it to her to decide. And I'm like, yep, you're right. And I had to catch myself and pull myself back, because as I was thinking about discussing this session, I remembered, when was the last time I tried to act like a savior? And I think that was the example that came to my head.
Yeah, that's a really great example. And, I too, especially stepping into coaching, I consciously catch myself, and I'm way better now than I was even just a few years ago when I started this journey. But I love your specific story that you share, because it's also very beautiful that you wanted to share, right? Like, you see the side of it. It's like, I've been through it. Let me support someone. But is it really helping her? And so there's this feeling of, I feel good supporting someone else and giving them something that I never had.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think that's what it comes from. It's like, I want to support others because I didn't get that support. Sometimes that's where it comes from. I know for me, that's where it comes from, because it was a lot of fend for yourself. I hope you make it out there. Just because with a big family, you're just like, good luck, get a job, work hard, earn money, just make it work. And so you're always like in these different survival modes, figuring out how to make it work and where you can support others, which again, as I said, like, there's that insight of this is supporting me too, or at least that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I say this with Jan in the session as well, that there's nothing wrong with wanting to help, no less your sister, right? But it's the compulsiveness that gets attached to it when you can't help but help,
Yeah. And I remember her saying, I felt like as if I didn't even have a choice. Right? And that was a very strong statement, where obviously she has a choice, but she felt so obligated and just pulled in. It was like muscle memory.
Yes.
Of just the autopilot kind of stepping in. And then when she leaned in too far, that's when the resentment, the irritation that she was feeling, and of course she wants to support her sister, as she clearly said, but it was the overly, it's kind of like I always say, like, everything's on a spectrum, or the swing in the pendulum. It's like when it goes too far. And then that's when it's not as balanced. It's like, how do you pull it back to that center place where you can still support from love and generosity, but not from a different place of wanting to be needed.
Yes.
And maybe wanting to be needed kept her safe. I don't know, but it could be something along those lines.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, if Jan is constantly reading the room and doing things to make sure the adults around her are okay, in an attempt to make herself feel more safe, because you're totally dependent on the adults in your life, right, when you're that young. So of course, like, that's where it stems from. But then it keeps it just becomes this ingrained pattern. And you use the word muscle memory, which is so fantastic, such a great way to describe it, because that's what complexes are. Like, I've read that they are the psychological equivalent of a reflex. Like, you touch something hot and, you automatically will do that. It's when you pull that hand back, you bypass any ability to cognitively think about it. The reaction just happens. And the same way with the complex, you see someone in need of help. Before you can evaluate whether I have the time, space, capacity, what am I really looking for here, you just automatically, like muscle memory, jump to that rescue.
Yeah, and what Jan did say, and she said it a few times, she said she intellectually knew she was doing this. She recognized the pattern, yet she didn't know what to do. She said, I don't know, quite a few times. And every time she said that, she reinforced that in her psyche, that she didn't know. But if she would pause and really kind of identify, she's like, I know, I still find myself doing this. You know, it's that pause that allows us to really, again, get honest with yourself and ask yourself that question. Is this coming, where is this coming from? Is it coming from a centered place in me, or is it coming from a deeper need to feel needed, or to whatever it is, whatever she's experiencing it? But I love how honest she was with herself
Yeah.
the imagination, the active imagination.
Yeah. And even after the imagination, you know, when I was like, how was like, she's like, I did not like that.
And I love that honesty because, you know, she said it's hard. And, you know, like saying, I don't know, and it's hard. And it's like, maybe it's not hard, maybe it's uncomfortable. And those are two different things, right? And it's hard because it's uncomfortable. And it's something that she hasn't looked at before. And it's, these patterns are so ingrained in us. They feel like our natural way of being. They feel like this is who I am, right? Where you and I both know that's not who you are, that's just who you are conditioned to be.
Yes, that is just the wiring in your unconscious mind, but it's not who you are. It's not the totality of who you are. Your psyche encompasses so much more than you're aware of, so much more that you can harness to live a full life. And you just pick this one way of being because in childhood you were thrown into these conditions that made that the best survival strategy. That's how we develop our personality and our persona, is by adapting to what we saw. And, you know, we change and morph it over time, but fundamentally it stays quite the same until something in life forces us to look at it and be like, do I really just want to keep doing this till the day I die? Right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, for most of us, it does take something in life that triggers that shift. But it's not a bad thing, of course. You know, it's a blessing in disguise, as they say. But there are, you get to that point where it's like you realize you do need to make a shift, and you do need to kind of really take that time to look at yourself and really identify like where the core of these behavior and these patterns are coming from, right?
Yeah. So maybe we can talk about, in a hypothetical world, if we were to continue working with Jan, what is something she might benefit from? Because I think it's pretty obvious, hopefully, from this podcast and from anybody who's listening who's engaged in inner work, is that it's not a one-session thing. It's not a one-time thing. The complex, almost like, based on my experience and everything I've read, is never just going to leave and be like, okay, bye-bye, I'm done being your savior. But you can get better and better at recognizing it, at giving it space in conditions like this so that it doesn't have to come out in real life. And you get so, what's the word? You get so practiced at it after a point that it might feel like the complex no longer exists, but really, like, it is there. It has been around for a while. It's going to stay around for a while. You're now just conscious of it, and it no longer surprises you the way it used to. And I think Jan helped her sister, 2-3 days before this session that we recorded. And she was quick enough to recognize that I just did all this for her in the last week, and I'm feeling resentful, which is so different from if I were to have met her maybe 20 years ago. Maybe she would have spent months and months trying to help someone and then recognized it, right? So already that period is shortening, which itself is a form of progress. But then how do we make sure that this progress keeps going and build on the work that we did together in this session?
Yeah. And I love how in the visualization, you know, you really encouraged her. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're just sitting with it. You're just sitting with the Savior. You're sitting with the sadness. And so for Jan, it's really continuing to develop that conscious relationship with her own savior within, right? Where it has served an important role for her in her life for many, many years. So we're not trying to push it back down, but this is where it deserves like the appreciation and, you know, the acknowledgement of how it has served her in her life. And I tell my clients, like, a lot of times the insights come in between the sessions. Although I do feel like Jan had some beautiful insights in the session with you, which was really lovely to see. And even though she was uncomfortable doing it, she still did it. And what her psyche kind of brought forward was really beautiful.
Yeah, no, I feel
And it's
like,
just the beginning.
yes, it began something powerful that I need to first just accept my savior. I am not here to push it away, which is what we try to do with complexes. And the more we push them, the more they push back harder. So she was able to accept it, briefly see it, uncomfortable as it was. And the next step for her is to, like you said, cultivate a conscious relationship with it. Accepting that there's a savior in me. Here's why it came about. I'm so grateful to it because it helped me survive all these years. And even today, I like the fact that I have the capacity to help, but I'm going to consciously choose how and where I'll channel this savior. So it's no longer like this adversarial relationship with, like, I hate this about me, and it becomes like, this is a part of me and I welcome it. And I welcome it as much as I welcome my most beautiful features, you know?
Yeah.
And there's no judgment against this part.
Yeah, and even welcoming all the emotions that come with the savior part of her, whether it's the sadness or the frustration or the anxiety that she was feeling, just welcoming it. And I use the Rumi poem, The Guest House, a lot with my clients, where I won't recite the poem, but the guest house, you know, it's like each day these new guests arrive, and this is where you just welcome them in and just sit with them and become friends with them, or get curious about them, ask them questions. And we all have that capability within us to get, you know, do that self-inquiry and just sit with them. And as you said, not try to push it down, because again, what you resist persists, and it actually becomes even stronger, right? But when you relax into it, you welcome it in, and you get curious, that's where the transformation happens.
Exactly, and that applies to everything. Every piece of inner work that has to do with the unconscious. And sometimes on this podcast, I feel like I'm just like repeating myself and, you know, saying the same thing over and over, but it really truly does start there. You find that person, symbol, image from your unconscious, and you welcome it in. And I think a lot of people on the show and otherwise that I encountered in life, and myself included, we have some very good critical negative self-talk. And I think it comes from talking to these parts of you like that. And I feel when you no longer have animosity or contempt towards things that are in your own unconscious, like your savior or any other complex you might have, then the more you befriend them, the more your own internal talk in general, I think, starts to soften, and you don't have to like whip yourself into shape.
Yeah. And in Jan's case too, because she has so many other underdeveloped energies within her, right? And so that's her work now, is to really kind of tap into what other archetypal energies need development, whether it's, you know, the queen setting boundaries, which she mentioned she's good at setting her boundaries, but the sage, the lover, the mystic, like how can she channel some of those energies and where they can support each other?
Yes, true. The archetypal work is so empowering, it's and endless in some ways. And I feel like people don't realize when they scratch the itch of a complex just how much richness there is in the unconscious. It's not just your own personal matter, it's everything that's in the collective. And when people want to live a rich, fulfilled life, which I'm hoping all of us do, right? Like, we don't want to have that. Like, we took birth in human form to have the full range of human experience. So if we want to do that, then really tapping into those archetypal energies is the way to go. And it always starts somewhere in the personal before it goes deeper. So Jan's clearly been doing that inner work, and one by one, as she befriends all these different wild beings in her unconscious, she'll also befriend archetypes. I think archetypes are just, I always think of them as so mighty and powerful and, waiting, ready to be evoked and harnessed for our work.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful and so true. So very true, and so empowering when you learn how to tap into the various archetypal energy within you.
Yes. Lovely. Shall we wrap it up here today? Do you feel like you have anything more to add?
Well, I think just ultimately for Jan, like, I feel like her deeper invitation is learning that her worth is not necessarily tied to her usefulness.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of just knowing that she's valuable just because she exists as a human and as a soul, and it's a lifelong journey, as you know, with all this work. It's kind of on. So I just encourage her to stay open and just stay curious as she explores these various aspects of herself.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderfully said. Thank you, Amy. I really enjoyed doing this with you. It was so nice to have somebody to bounce ideas with and to just talk myself. Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's session, for letting me and Amy share our own experiences with Savior Complex and witnessing Jan's journey that has been in the making, that continues to deepen, and has a lot to look forward to as it goes on. As always, you can reach out to me and get coached on this show. Now you can see that it won't just be me, but other experts offering their advice too, and speaking from the real. This is not about us telling you what to do, but us sharing what the journey looks like for us so that you too can take on this journey for yourself. That's all I have for you today. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye. Thank you for being my partner in Sublime today. I hope you enjoyed diving into the unconscious with me. To ask a question or get coached on the show, visit shagunchopra.com/ask or click the link below. See you next time.